Hello and welcome to SBK Unplugged, Sheldon Bosley Knight's Land and Property podcast. My name's Kate Gould and I'm the host of the show. Today, I'm joined in the studio by our rural team, all of them, which is lovely to see you here. So I've got Jimmy Morton, who's the director, Sophie Mockler, who's our rural chartered surveyor, and Archie Benson, who is our graduate chartered surveyor. Welcome to you all. Nice to see you.
Thank you for having us.
Before we kick off, I would like to say thanks again to 1 Mill Street here in Leamington Spa for hosting us in their amazing studio. So thanks very much for having us again, guys. So, rural team, got you in from the field.
Yep.
All of you. Lovely to see you. I wanted to find out a bit more about what you do in your department, your specific roles, perhaps a bit about current clients, any specific projects you've got on the go, and how your department fits in with the wider business, because I know you work quite closely with some of the other departments. But before we kick off, I'd like to find out a bit more about you individually, your roots into land and property and into Sheldon Bosley Knight in particular. So Jimmy, as director, as head of the team.
Thank you. Yes, so I've been doing this now since 2012. I joined a local firm sort of practicing between Coventry, Warwick and the rest of the sort of Leamington area. I stayed there for a good number of years, moved over to another firm specialising in more strategic land planning, diversification projects for farmers, and then was approached by Dan 18 months ago now, I think, to come over. He said that they needed someone to come in to the rural department, sort of look at heading it up jointly with somebody else. And after having a couple of chats with Dan and then Mike, I sort of jumped at the opportunity. I've always known Sheldon Bosley as it was, and then in the most recent years, Sheldon Bosley Knight as being the farmer's agent. Came across them acting for farmers, and Sheldon Bosley being on the other side, and always had a good sort of working relationship with them. So having the opportunity to come over to a firm like SBK was one that I didn't really want to drop. So very happy to be here. I'm still quite young compared to some of the guys around the table in terms of how long I've been here. But route into land agency was not too dissimilar to what I wanted to do. I always wanted to be a farmer. Come from a family farm, not too far away from Leamington. Unfortunately, farming isn't great at the moment. It wasn't massively great back then. And parents sort of said, you know, what could you do that's something different? And my uncle was a land agent, so I went and had some work experience with him. I did a couple of weeks there. I went to a local agricultural college, Moorton Morrell, which isn't too far from here either. And then went on to Harper Adams and studied rural enterprise land management. And I think it was there that I really felt land agency was the career for me. You do still get out on farms. You get to hang out with like-minded people that are interested in farming, the environment, and I think the countryside as well, which is somewhere that, you know, I can't really leave behind. So, yeah, it's all a good fit for me, really.
Excellent. Sophie, what about you? How did you...
Mine's not quite so organised as Jimmy's. I left school and didn't really know what I wanted to do at all. So had a gap year working on the farm, riding my horses. I was a show jumper, and that's where the route that I wanted to go. I wanted to be a professional show jumper, and realised you needed to either be married to a rich person or have a very rich family behind you, and I didn't. So ended up working at Rugby Livestock Market, just one day a week. Something a bit different, earn a bit of money, and sort of fell into this role through the auctioneer there who knew somebody who set up their own firm over in Worcestershire, and they were looking for someone to just do farm paperwork, basically. So I went and worked there, and it slowly progressed through to thinking, okay, actually the surveyor role kind of is for me, but hadn't gone to uni, so had to then go and do a postgraduate degree, a master's degree, based on no degree at all, base level degree. So did that whilst working for this other firm in Worcestershire, and then I moved over back to Warwickshire and continued my degree there. And once I qualified, let me say that again, I didn't qualify. I passed my master's and then had to then go through the APC route, which Archie's doing at the moment. And I did that then with a national firm, which I specialised in utilities and infrastructure, which I really didn't like. I went into this wanting to help farmers, and utilities is very much on the opposite side of helping farmers. You're working for really a public body. So left there and came to Sharon Bosley Knight. There wasn't a job really advertised for me. I saw an advert for somebody to take over one of the directors that was leaving from the rural team, and I rang up Mike and said, I'm not really what you want at all. I'm not qualified. I haven't got that much experience, but I want to work for Sharon Bosley Knight. It's a local firm doing what I love doing, which is helping farmers out, and eventually got a job. So yeah, I did pester him quite a lot for the job and eventually got it. And then, passed my exams 2 years ago. I think I got my chartered surveyors, 22. And then got my agricultural valuers exams last year after a couple of attempts. So that was pretty good. And so I've been here 5 years now, nearly, in November.
Because they're quite difficult exams, aren't they? I hear.
Yeah, the APC is difficult. That's 2 years of work you have to do, put together case studies and various different competencies that you have to fill out. And then you have an hour interview by 4 other people that are qualified and you don't know over a Zoom Zoom meeting, which is pretty intense. And then the ag valuers are 2-day exams. So full days. You've got 1 day out on a farm. Practical, you have different questions based around the farm on various different topics that we as land agents cover, which can be subsidies right through to valuations, residential properties, the livestock, crops, everything. And then you have 2 set exams then the next day, which are written, and then an interview for half an hour where you're quizzed on various different things. So the topics, the whole syllabus is huge. That was quite good to get that. It's taken me a couple of attempts, but I have got that now. So that's me.
Oh, fantastic! Well done.
Thanks.
Archie, over to you.
Over to me.
Yeah.
I guess my love for the rural sector started probably when I was quite young. We got a family farm in Dorset. So every Christmas, every weekend we had off school, any time we'd be down there on the farm. It was sort of a mixed beef and arable farm with my uncle and cousins. And we'd just be out motorbikes, farming, having a laugh. Then from there, I used to work on farms in the summer. So I did a lot of tractor driving. I'm a good laugh with all the farmers. And from there, I went to school in Dorset, which was a lot of fun. Did rural land management there, that's sort of bringing me more into the land agency role. Then I took a gap year after that, which helped on farms. I'm saying farm a lot, but we did a lot of travelling, working on the farms. Came back to the 3-year degree at Cirencester, which was a land management course again. From there, another farm experience, so work on a farm for the summer. And then I thought to myself, right, I've got a degree in this. I should probably put it to paper and get a job. Because I was at the time just driving tractors all the time on the farm. And I thought, right, I want to work for someone now. That's when I then had a few interviews with a few local firms, a firm in Dorset, a firm in Cheshire, and Sharon Bosley Knight. From there, I went to the interviews, and my interview with Sharon Bosley Knight was with Sophie and Marcus Faulkner, who has been with the firm for many years. And it was just a right laugh. It was very nerve-wracking, but they made me feel quite happy, and I wasn't so nervous by the end. And it whittled it down, and that's what really sold it for me. I think Mike and Dan also, and the phones and everything, they just, it all just sort of fit together, and I've been here now 2 years and a few months, looking to get my APC and CAV like these guys. So it's
and how far are you going with the APC? Are you sort of started the process, or are you
Yes. So as Sophie said, it's 2 years. I'm just a little bit over. I'm going to sit in April. Well, now it would have been now, but I pushed it back till September. So my submission and case study is 80% the way there, I'd
really
say. But it's a lot of work. It's difficult, but you get in what you get out.
Yeah.
You get out what you put in.
Yeah.
Rework.
But I hear it's a very difficult set of qualifications to get.
Yeah, it
so,
is. Yeah. You've got to put a lot
it's
of
a real
time and
achievement to get it, isn't it?
100%, yeah.
You invest. You've got to make the decision to be a chartered surveyor quite early on, because you need to choose a RICS accredited degree. So it's a decision you need to be making when you're sort of 15, 16, when you're choosing your A-levels as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you want to go on to be a chartered surveyor, you don't have to do raw route. There's chartered surveyors do everything. Mark Treadwell, he's a commercial surveyor. You have residential surveyors that are chartered as well. So you are sort of deciding what your future is going to hold for you right at that early stage. And I think the agricultural sector or rural sector within the RICS is probably one of the smaller sectors now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is, yeah.
It's still well supported, but we also get a lot of support from the Central Association of Agricultural Values, of which Sophie is a fellow. And they provide some incredible help towards us as surveyors in the rural sector, sort of walking through the minefield. Sometimes
they give you
it's
clarity
great
on
to-
legislation that comes out, and they're your voice in government as well. I think the CLA are the same, aren't they? The Country Landowners Association, sorry. They're all sort of, in government for the farmers, for us as agents on how to advise our farmers. So there's a lot of stuff you need to know to be a surveyor. It's a huge job to get your APC and to get on and do it. And then once you've qualified, you think, oh, whew, that's great, I've got it. And then suddenly there's continued professional development we have to do, and you have to continually learn about what is going on all the time. You're never, it's not just a set job, this is what you can do and go out and do it. There's new legislation that comes out all the time. There's various things that happen to farmers, like the weather, that then means that they have to do something else and farm in a different way. So it's varied all of the time, and it changes all of the time, and it does require a lot of brain power.
It's good industry though, isn't it? I mean, I think when I was a graduate, I was also, the RICS we had a local matrix group, which was fantastic at meeting other surveyors. And I think when you realise, if you've gone to university and just studied like Realm, like I did at Harper, or like Archie did a land management course at Cirencester, you get slightly pigeonholed that you're just going to be in rural. But when you can meet other surveyors and you can learn off other surveyors as well, it's quite interesting. And I think the RICS do provide that. But yeah, the CPD is always a bit of a pain because legislation is changing. I think one thing with farmers and farms is that you can walk onto a farm, and some people that don't know or aren't clued up, I guess, on what a farm is may just think a farmer just produces food. They're not. They're multidisciplined business people, basically. So you might turn up and they might have 2 residential cottages. They might have some commercial buildings they're letting out. They may have some land on the edge of a village or town that's being promoted for development. And so we have to help with everything that you see day in, day out. So we're lent on, or I don't suppose lent on's the right word. We're sort of asked for help from farmers who pay for our expertise to tell them, this is what you should be considering, this is what you could do. I know Sophie and Archie are working incredibly hard on the moment on the environmental schemes that are being announced, the Sustainable Farming Incentive, which is a great opportunity for farmers. I don't think it's the what's the word? I don't know, the challenge.
Saving grace.
Yeah, the saving grace is going to help farmers, obviously, now that the basic payment scheme's gone and they're not going to have any entitlements in a few years.
Financial support.
I think they're under a lot of pressure.
Huge.
Farmers in general, they've got to fight climate change. They've got to feed the nation. Provide cheap food.
Also, deliver environmental things that everybody wants on top of doing their day-to-day job of making sure that the crops are grown and that the livestock are able to eat.
And presumably get the staff to do it, especially if they're maybe fruit pickers or, you know, seasonal crops. You know, that must have been quite a difficulty for some of them.
Absolutely. And I think in terms of, I mean, well, there is a show, well-known show that's out there at the moment that has done wonders for farming. I think it has taught a lot of people that maybe didn't know what farmers did and the pressure that farmers are under. It has shine a light on that, which has been
it's given
really
a realistic input, hasn't it?
It has,
Insight, I suppose.
And a lot of that is not, yes, okay, some of it's going to be for telly, but a lot of it is actually, you know, home truths in there. So I think we're, as land agents, sometimes we are the ones that have to tell farmers no, in terms of you shouldn't be doing that like that. And I think we're there to then guide them and direct them how they should be doing stuff. Whether that is, you know, taking an old tumble down building that's on the farm, you know, we'll go out and look at that and give them the options that they could do. And that's where we would then ring up Tasha in the planning department and say, Tash, do you want to come and have a look at this building? Could you advise, you know, what are the next steps? What could they do? And then we'll be there to help the farmer in terms of the business plan, what they're going to do with that building at the end of it. If they're going to let that out commercially, then we'll give Mark a ring in the commercial department and say, we've got this shed on this farm that needs putting on a proper agreement and renting out. So we look after that. Or if they're going to put it into a residential, then they may let it or look to sell it, depending on what they want to do. I think the biggest thing that we're doing at the moment is diversification. So that's looking at not necessarily moving away from producing food, but opportunities such as tourism.
Diverse income, isn't it? Anything to just help them out. Cost of everything's gone up in price for farmers. I mean, for everybody, you go to the supermarket, everything's more expensive. But that's the same for farmers at the minute. You know, they're trying to feed cows and sheep. Their feed prices have gone up. They've almost doubled. Yet the price they're getting for that individual animal is not anywhere near the cost. So you know, it's that whole. That's one of their biggest pressures at the moment. So, you know, you may see farmers going out of work completely, but to try and save their businesses, some of them that have, you know, generations old, the younger generation are thinking, right, okay, we've got this building that's doing nothing here. It's trying to fall down. Let's get Charlotte Bosley Knight to come out and see if they can tell me what I can do with this. I want to turn it into a farm shop. I'm going to turn it into a studio and let it for Pilates, or I'm going to, I don't know, turn it into a house or something like that. So, you know, we'll be asked to go out and do, I don't know, a basic meeting, which is just to have a chat with the farmer and, I don't know, fill in a scheme form for him, and we'll get there and they'll say, oh, can you just go and look at this building? And you're like, okay, right, now I've got to get my head on for planning. So we don't specialise in planning, we have a planning team that do that, but then you've got to think, right, okay, what's our basic rules on planning? Is this, can we convert this? And then from there we'll advise them and say, right, okay, we're going to go back to our planning department, they'll be in touch with you. Or they'll come up with something completely random and you have to think, right, okay, I don't quite know where you want me to go with this, but then you have to go back and do your research on it, but you have to sit in front of your client and sound confident and like you know what you're talking about, so that they don't think, okay, these aren't the people for me, I need to go somewhere else. So I think we have to provide everything for them in a meeting that might be something that we've prepared for, and then they'll go off on a complete tangent and we're like, okay. And that's one of the best things I think about our job, but also probably the most challenging. So yeah, a meeting that's going to last half an hour can last 2 or 3 hours, and you come out of it and you've just gone and doubled or tripled your workload. So I think that's
the day after it's completely different.
yeah.
No day is the same day.
No day is the same. I think Archie came back to the office the other day, trousers covered in mud, sleeves rolled up, and he'd been out.
Hope they weren't your best trousers.
They were. They were his good trousers, and he came in and he was so, you know, excited and happy about his morning he'd had on this estate. Basically, we'd had a big water leak on an estate, and so Archie had been down in these manhole covers, bailing out and going around trying to
figure out where it was.
Oh, fantastic!
Did
you find it?
We did find it, and we found out all sorts actually.
Oh, really?
Because the pipes are old, very old. So yeah,
typical estate mates.
It was very exciting. A bit of sort of hands-on. That's another thing we do in our job. Yeah, sometimes you go to the farm. Have you got your wellies? Yeah. I have. I've actually got in my car now. I've got waterproofs and everything just in case.
Yeah.
move some sheep or do something. Don't
You joke, but I've done that before. I've rocked up on farm, and as you've got there, the farmer's coming out, your client is coming out, like waving at you. You think, oh, great, oh, wow, he's really excited to see me. And then he's like, get out of the car quickly. Can you go down the road and just help me get some cows in? And you literally, there's like cattle that have bust the fence, and you're like, okay. So off you trot down the road. So, yeah, I think it's a good job to be in, isn't it?
It is a good job. And you go from that extreme to then be going into a meeting. You could be in charge of a large estate which has a load of trustees looking over it, and you're advising on the future of that estate for the next generation. So it's completely, we advise them on the tax regime, obviously with accountants involved. But our job is to come up with the ideas, go to the other professionals like the solicitors and the accountants, come up with it. Because with a lot of the country estates that we manage, it's all about preserving it for the next generation. And that's not just for the family to enjoy, but everybody that lives and works on the estate as well. So these places provide a lot of work for other people. So they need to be retained, really.
Yeah. So are farmers your typical clients? Are they the bread and butter clients, or do you?
Yeah, I would say so. Yes, farmers are our day-to-day, but we do have other clients that might be business people, for instance, that are looking to start farming. So they'll be buying land to farm it. We also do valuations for banks, so people that are lending as well to buy farms and estates. Sometimes local authorities, we do act for those, so they sometimes own land. Or another good example is that if, take HS2 for example, that's coming through people's property at the moment, so we would act for the landowners, and that doesn't necessarily mean that that would be a farmer, it might be a commercial unit, but we as land surveyors would still do that job, and we would negotiate the compensation for them. So we have quite a sort of diverse group.
It's quite varied then.
Yeah, it's very varied. That's the trouble with our job. It's very difficult to actually say what we do because we do and have to know so much.
Well, it completely ranges. I mean, we sometimes will go to a residential property with a small tree on its boundary, that's overhanging. And then the day after, the team will be at a big estate, like Jimmy said, round trustees. It's anything. Landowners, farmers, anything to do with land and property, I guess.
So what are the big challenges then? I mean, you mentioned the weather being quite a challenge, and the cost of living for farmers and landowners. Are there any other challenges that you're faced with now that perhaps you weren't maybe 5 or 10 years ago? Or are the trends kind of emerging at all?
There are. Obviously, farming is affected hugely by external factors. So the war in Ukraine, that had an impact on grain prices. Obviously, when we left the European Union, that's had an impact in terms of trade and free trade within Europe. The loss of entitlements that farmers were paid, subsidised for farming. So these are challenges. Also changing in policies as well. The driver from the government at the moment is definitely, they've sort of turn the spotlight on farmers to try and solve carbon, the issue of carbon. So it's a bit of a balancing act, and farmers, I don't know whether they're at a slight loss in terms of what they should be doing, because everyone always seem to be quite an easy target to be like, oh, well, farmers got a load of land, they can go plant half of it with trees and write off the carbon for somebody else. It's a challenge, but ultimately I would say the majority of our clients want to farm. They want to produce food for the nation. Yeah. But that's not possible, really.
Showed by the protests recently.
In Wales.
Wales and France. I think farmers are slowly getting quite fed up. Yeah. Being paid to produce food, but now being told to save the environment and save the world by planting trees, like Jimmy said, and everything like that. It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Do you get? Are they thinking about solar farms and things like that? I've seen lots of fields with solar panels, and is that?
Yeah, that's something I get involved with. So it's normally an approach by a solar developer. We'll come and approach one of our clients. They'll ring us up and say, "Look, I've had this approach. Can you act for me?" Yeah, and they are a good opportunity when they come off. They obviously have their issues in terms of how they look, so that they have to get planning before they can go through. But if that can come on to a farm, that produces a diversified income to that farming family. Where we then step in further is we have to get the accountant involved to then advise what they do with that income, because suddenly, you're not farming that land, you've got someone else in there, you've got solar panels on it being run by another company. So that can have issues with inheritance tax planning, getting that to go to the next generation, because there's certain reliefs that are available on agricultural land at the moment, and once you put solar panels on it, might not get those reliefs, or it won't get those reliefs. So
okay.
Yeah, we always have to think 2, 3, 4 steps ahead.
Yeah.
In what we're doing. It's the same as when Dan and Charles are doing the Strat land, and they're, got an amazing windfall for a landowner selling their land for development. There's suddenly this money, and it's what to do with that money in the most efficient manner. So some farmers want to go and buy more land and continue farming. And I think personally, if it was me, I'd be straight on the plane to Barbados. But,
Playing cricket.
playing cricket in Barbados, yeah, that's what I'd do.
But you said earlier that you get people coming to you to look to set up as a farmer.
Yeah.
Is that a surprise given the constraints that farmers are
It is a surprise
facing at the moment?
But I think there's definitely there's a classic saying is they're not going to make any more of it, and that's land. So people always want to own a slice of England. And farming is still a lifestyle, but there is obviously, farming land is still a business. So there is the attraction there. And that's where we get involved again, is that we would act on behalf of the landowner for the contract farming agreements. So they would be the farmer by owning the land and effectively farming it, but through a contractor. They might not have their own kit. They may not have ability to buy their own kit, but they can still farm, which is quite good.
Excellent. It's nice to know that there are still some people who are wanting to do it, because obviously it's really important industry.
It is.
But it's hard. It must be really hard work.
It's hard to get in. I mean, land prices have gone bonkers.
Yeah, trying to buy a farm is next to impossible if you're a young person trying to get into it.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not as acceptable. If you... I think it would be quite difficult if you came out of school and said, right, I want to be a farmer. You need a lot of money behind you now to get in it, to buy the land. There are council farms which would basically set up for new entrants into farming.
Still difficult to get into, though.
But they're still difficult, very competitive. Small holding, there's a huge amount of people out there that small hold.
You can't, you've got to do something else on top of that. A small holding won't give you, an income for, especially not for two, if you're looking at husband and wife or something. But I think there's a lot of farmers generally are living a lot longer. People generally are living a lot longer these days. So, most of the farms that we see all have succession plans in place. But if you've got more than one child, that farm probably can't sustain more than one person working for it full time. So it's a bit like Jimmy's personal home farm experience. His brother will be working alongside your father, and Jimmy's gone out and done something else because it can't have both of them farming. So I think we do see a lot of that, where there's more than one child, and maybe they've got to figure out how they go into farming, or whether they do something completely different, and then that's where the diversification comes in, or they don't want to do it at all. I mean, I've got clients that have said, I would never want my son or daughter to go into this. Why would I? It's a really hard work. You don't make much money. Everyone thinks you're rich because you own a farm, but you don't. You've got a lot of money in assets, but you don't. You're cash poor most of the time. So they say absolutely not. I don't want them to do it. Go and work in London. You can earn a lot more money. So that's
a lifestyle, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a lifestyle, but it's also bred into you.
It is.
Yeah. So if you're born into a farming family, most people want to continue doing it. So,
and you didn't fancy being a farmer, seeing as you spent quite a lot of time on farms. Sort of working your way up to.
I would love to be a farmer.
Oh, would you?
I absolutely love to. But unfortunately, it was never handed to me. And again, it was just, I didn't have the money. I love working on farms. They were the best best days of my life doing that. Yeah, and now we can meet farmers and advise them on what to do. Yeah, it's brilliant. It's a really good job.
Yeah.
I'd say it's a bit of the office, bit of the field, bit of a mix, yeah. And working with these two as well, even better.
We do have quite a laugh, to be fair.
Yeah.
It is quite a fun team to work on.
So other clients and other projects you've got going on at the moment, are you able to share?
Yeah,
what you're
SFI,
doing?
Sophie, you're the expert. You and
I don't know
Archie.
whether I'm an expert, but yes, sustainable farming incentive is something the government's brought out, environmental schemes. So a lot of farmers at the minute, we've had awful weather, as we've mentioned a couple of times. So arable farmers, for example, haven't been able to plant all their crops. So they're thinking, right, how can I make this land earn me some money this year? So they're looking to go into some sort of environmental scheme, putting something there. They're 3-year agreements, so they're not committed for too long, but they work quite well. If you haven't got anything drilled in the ground, you could put a herbal laydown, for example, which is grass, essentially. So then you establish that within a 12-month period. You can graze it, so that's another income. If you've just an arable farmer, you can get livestock on there. So we've got quite a few of those going on at the moment, haven't we? And BPS used to be, this time of year now, we'd be filling out the basic payment scheme forms, which is a subsidy the government pay the farmers if you've got entitlements for your land, essentially. That's being reduced this year. We've now got D-link payments. You don't have to do the BPS forms anymore. You just get paid in a reduced amount each year until 27 when it's gone. And I think a lot of farmers have realised this year that money is reducing quite a lot. And for some of them, it's their break even is receiving this money might pay their rent if they're renting the farm, or it literally will stop them from having a horrific year and making huge losses. It just gives them a little bolster, and they're not getting that anymore. So they're coming to us and saying, look, we need to figure out how we bridge this gap. And so SFI is there not really it's not replacing it, but it's there to give you farmers a little bit of money to do some of the activities that they're actually already doing. So I think that's where our focus at the moment is probably there. Mainly
for old rope, isn't it?
Yeah.
If they're doing it already.
Yeah.
So do they come to you with their ideas of how they do this, or do you go to them, or is it a bit of both? I mean, do you sort of advise them on what might be best for their particular circumstance?
I think it's a bit of both, isn't it? They'll ring us up and say, I've heard of this SFI, can you tell me about it? That's pretty much how it goes. And then we have to arrange to go out. We can have a brief talk over the phone. This is what we can do. Knowing the client, if they are a long-standing client, we'll know if they're livestock, arable, mixed, and we can say, right, okay, these are some of the options you could have a look at the handbook, understand what these actions are that you need to do, what you need to do, when you need to do it by, what you can and can't do, and then we'll go out and see them, talk about it, and then we try and work now more closely with agronomists, don't we?
Well, what I feel we do a lot is because we do it daily. We do these SFI schemes all the time. The farmers come with their ideas, and then we can advise on the actual application process. But obviously, we all know a bit about farming, but we're not the ones on the ground doing it. So we do lean on them for a bit of advice. And like Sophie said, agronomists, they're the ones that know the science of the crops,
The soils,
everything. So they can advise a farmer, we want to put these stewardship areas or the scheme areas here, and we can then work it out all for them, forecast how much they're going to get paid, see if it works within their farming operations, and put this submission forward and hopefully get as much money back as possible with the loss of subsidies.
So it's kind of a bit of a team effort with all of you involved, isn't it? I guess,
definitely.
With the agronomist and the farmer and you guys.
Yeah, I mean, the agronomist will say, absolutely not, that won't work there, knowing the soils. I mean, we aren't necessarily going to know that. We're not specialised in agronomy. We don't do facts or basis, which you need to be if you're an agronomist. So we can put the scheme together, say this is how much it's going to cost you, because you have to buy the seed. It's not like you're just getting money for doing nothing. You've got to buy it, you've got to establish it, you've got to, there is a cost element to it, but once you've established it, this is what it's probably going to earn you. And then the agronomist or the farmer, depending on how well they know their land to that detail, we'll say whether these options work on those certain areas. So it is definitely a team effort. We do a lot with other professionals in everyday life anyway, really. Accountants, solicitors, agronomists. Any more?
Yeah.
Any others? I think that's about it. So yeah, it's important that we have that good connections with them, but that's what the farmers sort of rely on us for, is to sort of bring all that together, isn't it?
The other thing we do is also doing those, but we also do capital grants and stuff. So for farmers that need help for putting fencing, there's historic ones, both stone bridges in or stone walling, maintenance of current historic features on estates, old estates. You know, we've got estates that have got old pump houses that used to pump the water up to a tank to feed the animals. Old historic features like that. You know, we help with that sort of stuff. Or, you know, like the old sluice gates on estates. We've had all sorts of dealings with those. And, you know, there's the river works. It's anything you can see out the window of your car in a farm. There's probably something, you know,
a land agent's had something to do with it. That's how I normally do it when we've done careers fairs at schools, and I will stand on there and I'll try and say what I do. And one good example is that when you wake up in the morning and you put the kettle on, it turns on electricity. It's likely that a land agent has negotiated that electricity cable to come across the farmer's field to feed into the development that you live on. Then you turn on the tap, that water, well, that's another land agent negotiated the pipeline to come across the farmer's field. You've driven through a road to get to school or wherever you're going. Well, that's gone through a farmer's field at some point. It will have involved a land agent to do that and negotiate that. Then you eat your breakfast, whether that's your cornflakes or whatever it might be. Other varieties are available. You know, a farmer has been advised by a land agent through that process. So I think we are an important part. One of our challenges is with younger generation, more access to, you know, Google searches, AI, ChatGPT, those kind of things, is that you can find out some of the answers. And so some guys are having a go themselves, aren't they?
Yeah.
But it's great to do that as an overview, but actually something like that is not going to pick up. You doing something here is actually going to mess up your tax planning for, you know, 10 years time. So it's still important, I think, to give us a ring if you've got any problems basically on your land.
And do you have sort of long-standing clients then as a result? So once you've advised them, they keep coming back and
repeat
asking.
Businesses. Yeah, and I think farmers are very loyal, and you do have to be at the end of the line for them. You know, when they try and get hold of you, they want to talk stuff through to you. And then our estate clients as well. So you may be managing an estate through generations, you know, and as it passes through retiring partner within a firm as well. So we've taken over from Marcus, who's the retiring partner at Shipston. He's handed the baton to us now, and there'll be another generation coming through these estates, which may be people that are our age or younger, and will form that relationship, and it will just keep going. And that's why our archives are, I mean, you can get lost in there reading the old files and stuff. It's incredible.
Definitely the department with the most amount of paper.
Yeah, we do have a lot of paper.
Paper.
Mainly
old
plans,
deeds and
plans and agreements and various different things. But I think that's quite a good thing about our department is Marcus mainly now, not James Walton, who retired 4 years ago.
Before my time.
Before your time, I can't remember. But Marcus still works with us. He's on 3 days a week. He does Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. And we'll get clients ringing up all the time wanting Marcus. And they know that he's on, you know, lesser hours now, and they still want Marcus. So then Marcus will ring them up and say, oh, Jimmy can help you with this, but I'll be there in the background supporting them. And that kind of eases them because they know they've got someone new, but they've not just been dropped with someone new. So because farmers don't like that. They like consistency. They like to know, you know, who it is that's dealing with them. And you're dealing with really personal stuff. You know, you've got their finances, it's their business, it's their livelihood. And there's a lot of, you know, sometimes we have to have some really tough conversations with these farmers, if we're talking like succession planning, and which essentially is saying to the older person, when you're not here anymore, this is how we need to leave it. And so they don't want to just hand it over to Jimmy and Sophie and Archie, who they don't really know, because they've dealt with Marcus for 37 years, I think he's been with the firm. So it's really important to have that relationship, and a lot of our clients are long-standing, and they're Marcus's or James's, and they've been slowly we're being introduced to them. So yeah, Marcus is a key member of our team. It's a shame he's not here, but yeah, he's a key member, isn't he? We can't. A lot of the clients we'll say to them, this is the situation, and they'll say, oh yeah, and you think they've understood it, and then they'll ring back and go and check in and be like, Marcus, Sophie said this, is this correct? And it's like, so
yeah.
But I suppose it's like a lot of people, they don't like change, and it's very difficult, like you say, if it's a very personal decision to think about their business and their life, because it's their life, isn't it? They wake up every day and they're at work. So
24/7 farming.
So it's nice that you've got such a good team to help manage them and handhold them, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, yeah. One thing I did want to ask is a bit more about how you integrate into the rest of SBK, because I know that we're obviously a multidisciplined company and we all kind of have feelers into other departments. So tell me a bit about how that works for rural.
Yeah. So the business as it started was, I believe, in auctions. So we've obviously got now Matt, who heads up the auction department, and that was auctions for farmers. And I think, as I explained previously, farmers have a lot of things going on their farms. So if you take the normal farm, we work very closely with Natasha in the planning department, who gets us planning on projects for farmers. We work closely with Matt in auctions. So typically where we've got a small field, something that is going to have a lot of interest, and providing, we've discussed it with the client and they've decided that auction's the best route, we'll pass it on to Matt, and they do for them really, really well. He's achieved some fantastic prices for them. The estates have commercial property. Mark Treadwell and his team look after those for us there. Dan and Charles, they deal with the strategic side of things. And then also going back to the estates, we have the residential property, which are looked after by the lettings team. So mainly the guys in Shipston look after those for us. And then selling, farmers have cottages, landowners have cottages, houses that they want to go. So we're able to take advantage of the sales team as well within SBK to do that side of it.
I think what's really good for us is also going to clients and knowing that we've got these departments that we can
lean on.
Lean on. If we go to a meeting and someone says, "Oh, I've got this barn, I don't really know," and I think Sophie touched on it earlier, but it's a bit more sort of, oh, well, look, I can help out a little bit, but look, we've got a really good planning department that can come in and set you up, and help you out. I think that's just quite nice for us to know that, although we know a bit about it, we don't know everything about it, and they specialise in it. So it's for all the teams, really.
I think a lot of people look at a farmer and think just plain old drive a tractor, scruffy all the time because they're full of mud or whatever. And I think it's so much more diverse, their business. There's so much going on there. And that's why, we need to know a lot about when we go out and see them. But I think we do provide lots of different things then for the rest of the departments in the firm. Your estates are your classic, because your estates cover everything. There's woodland, there's land, there's farmers that are tenanted, there's cottages, we've got commercial, we've got, I think on one of our estates we've got 3 large capital projects where they're going to convert a beautiful set of barns into 4 residential dwellings, which the planning team have got all the planning permissions, they've done the drawings, we're going out to tender to speak to builders. And then you've got another area which is an old estate yard, which they've bulldozed what used to be there, and we're going to put up some commercial lets there. So again, we'll be leaning on the commercial team. I think the estate is probably the best one for us
it's
to
a good example, isn't it?
use as an example, because we do need to lean on all the other departments, but actually we also provide them with quite a lot of work.
Yeah.
And you don't need to outsource it. We've got it all in-house. So you can chat to people very, cross over the office and you found them.
Which makes it much easier when we go for our monthly meetings, which we have to do with our estate we go out and talk, and we can easily say, oh, this is where the planning team are with this is where Mark Treadwell and his team are with letting this, or if we've got any complications, we can quite easily get it resolved for the client, which I think it's SBK is a bit of a one-stop shop, if that's,
that's
too
what I
cringy.
think we want to be. We want people to ring us up and ask if we can do something, and we can say yes, we can. I may not be the expert for that, but such and such is. So, and I think the other good thing about us is that following joining forces with Andrew Granger up in Leicestershire, it's grown our raw department massively. And we brought in a great team over there who are just as experienced as we are down in Shipston. So we can cast our net further, and I think the varied advice we can give now is completely different to what it was sort of a year ago.
And that's one of the key things of our job. A lot of the time, we'll spend a lot of time bouncing ideas off each other. So, Archie's trying to learn from all of us for doing his APC. But at the same time, there'll be something that will come across my desk that I haven't got a clue, so I'll go to Marcus or Jimmy. There's things that probably come across your desk as well, Jimmy, and you're like, let's talk to Marcus. But there's even things that I think Marcus would say himself that they'll come to him and he'll say, oh, I don't know about that. But I think now we've got Andrew Granger as well, we've got a whole other team of people that have probably done things differently to how we have, but also have much broader experience now. We can turn to a lot of people for helping with workload or just bouncing ideas off on how we should do things.
I think that's the best thing about our team, really. I think we do all work very well together. And we trust each other. And we all ask each other questions. No question's a silly question. I think my first year...
I don't know, Archie.
I
think my first year, I think I slightly annoyed Sophie sometimes. I'd be asking that many questions. But,
it's how you learn, isn't it?
Sophie was able to answer 99.9% of them all.
I hated to say that.
So, it's, a great team. I do love working with them all, so...
Excellent.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you guys very much for having a chat.
Thank you.
I'll let you go back out to the field, literally.
Back out in the rain.
And thank you very much for watching, and we will see you again next time. Thank you.